Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing Content Extravaganza. And if you're new here, how could you possibly know that I am on a mission to give you everything you could possibly need if you are looking to be more successful in your business? Providing, of course, what you need to be more successful in your business is to know more about and be implementing more efficiently, more enthusiastically, and more effectively sales and marketing in your business. Because, of course, that's what you need. You need more customers more profitably. So what goes on here is I'm giving you everything I know about sales and marketing. That's the What the series on a Monday. On a Tuesday, I pull in anyone I can find with experience to share with you if you are looking to be more successful in your business. That's Talk Marketing on a Tuesday. Every other Wednesday, Melanie Farmer comes through and we look at the marketing news and speculate wildly about what it might mean for you in your marketing life or in your business. And on the other Wednesday, I review so you don't have to. On a Thursday, you'll find me here thinking out loud. And on a Friday, we react to the very best and the very worst of marketing content on the internet. So if that sounds like it might be interesting or useful, please tell me it does. We're only here to be interesting and useful. Then now would be the very best time to like, share, subscribe, comment, get involved, because that would give us the motivation to continue on this epic journey. Now, if you are tuning on the day that this premieres, it will be a Tuesday, which means that we have a guest for you. Now, today's guest is a geography graduate with a master's in executive leadership. He started his career as a firefighter and spent a year as a contract firefighter lieutenant in Iraq. He has been owner-CEO of his own CrossFit gym and has more than 10,000 hours live training experience. His marketing experience goes back to 2016 when he was a Facebook ads specialist. Since then, he has also run his own business supporting thousands of athletes to perfect their nutrition. He is currently a volunteer with Feeding Tampa Bay and Metropolitan Ministries and voluntary digital strategist with Girls Plus Data. Professionally, he is digital strategist with Scale Consulting, focusing on LinkedIn strategies using AI tools for faster lead generation. What you may not know about him is that he once flew solo. Today's guest is Brian Maucere. Good afternoon, morning, whatever it is there in Tampa Bay, Florida. Brian Maucere, how are you, man?
Good. How are you? That was some introduction there. Yeah, it's funny to think that all of that has happened. So, yeah, it's all true. It's all true.
It's all true. You know what? I really dig writing them and I really dig delivering them. And I really think I've got quite good at it. And as I've told you already, they normally take me 10 minutes, but yours is so varied that it took me 22 minutes, which is annoying because there was something else I wanted to do before I actually spoke to you, but we're good. Okay, so two things. I know we've touched on this already before we started recording, but I know you have been concerned about the variety in your career. But there's two things that strike me about it. One is there is a thread, and the thread, I think, is data and performance, which I think is what you need to know about me, Brian, is I've got issues. Okay, so basically, what this very often ends up being is like counseling for me and my issues.
Totally.
So I think data and performance is critical to effective marketing. That's what I think. I think the industry thinks that data is critical, but they don't necessarily think performance is critical. But I do, and I would imagine that you do, given that you've been so busy with data and performance. The other thing is about this is that I've often told people that running a marketing agency or providing marketing as a service is a little bit like gym membership. So when you engage with them, they're very excited and they're going to do whatever it is they need to do, and they've got their goals and they're buying the kit and all of that stuff. But then 3 weeks later, they'd rather sit at home and eat cake, is what I've come to realize. And I mean, this really is for me. This is my experience. I ran an agency. Like I won 1,000 customers in 9 years. And that's what I learned, is that people present like they're really interested in being really successful in their business. But then when it comes down to actually doing this stuff, they don't really fancy it, or they just really want to do what they want to do. They want to do it their way. But
Exactly.
I'm guessing that this is the case because I don't have experience of coaching people to be fitter, healthier, lose weight, whatever.
Yeah.
How right is that gross assumption that I've made repeatedly for probably 2 decades?
I think it's a good analogy. I think you're right. People, obviously we see every year with the big pushes, the New Year's resolutions come in and gyms get really full. And so you have your $10 a month gyms, and their entire goal is just to get you while you're super hyped up. And then they're really, really counting, their entire business strategy is counting on you not showing up. Because that's how they're going to stay afloat for $10 a month. And by the way, they couldn't possibly hold or, cater to all the people who actually go to that gym. And then you have like the gyms like I had. So I had a CrossFit gym, opened it up in 2011, and our goal was to get people to come back every single day. And what you're saying is true, though. You get people who come in the door. At that time, it was gaining notoriety, but I would say in 2011, at least in Tampa, it was not really well known. I still think a lot of people, if I went to the grocery store, tended to think it was a like a Bowflex or some sort of home equipment piece. If you said CrossFit, it sounded like this thing that Chuck Norris was still doing on TV and doing the infomercials and stuff. And so a lot of people didn't know what it was, but that was the case. People walk in the door, they get really excited. They had a friend, somebody couldn't stop talking about CrossFit. That was always the joke at the time, probably still is. And they get in the door and they were ready to go. And then the workouts were hard. They were challenging. They were difficult. And you get to that sort of 3-week process, and then the body hurts, the body aches. They're feeling all the feels. They've had a rough workout. Their hands were shaking on the way home, those kind of things. And then, that's when the real decisions had to be made about who was going to stay in, who was going to keep driving forward. But we had some amazing people who said they, just like in anything, in marketing or anything else, like, I didn't know I was going to enjoy this. I had hated every other attempt to work out or whatever, but this stuck with me. And I think, the larger idea here is that it's not one size fits all, not in nutrition, not in health, and certainly not in marketing. As obviously with all your thousands of clients, it's really just about finding that personalized approach that sort of works for them. And not to pivot, but that's obviously why I'm so excited about everything coming up with AI, is because it really pushes towards personalization, which is really, really exciting for me.
Okay, good. All right, but I'm not finished with this analogy yet, because now you're confirming this for me. I'm seeing greater depth to it, because I suppose the answer is, which is what you've suggested now, is that the answer is, what's the answer? The answer is in customer selection, isn't it? Actually, is in like being able to identify those people. And I suppose because it was CrossFit, it was like, it wasn't you've never done a second's exercise in your life and you stagger into a CrossFit gym. Like, it's somewhere further along the scale, isn't it, than your regular. It's not.
No, you would
bums and
think.
tums
You would
or
think.
those
No,
kinds of things.
we had people coming straight off the couch and had been on the couch for maybe 20 plus years. Now, I will say there was a bit of a common thread of where people had been active at some point in their life, but it was not uncommon for that drought to be 20, 30, some cases years long. We certainly had people that were in their 20s and 30s and maybe were a little bit younger. We had people who had risen to. I had one athlete that was a collegiate diver, and so he had been at a Division I school, and so he had been high level for his particular sport. But I would say the majority of people we had actually know. I think that's probably, a lot of people think that with CrossFit is that they're ultra fit people, but truthfully, I had a lot of people who were just frustrated. They had not found any success at your typical run of the mill gyms. The concept or idea of going to a gym and having to figure it out or feel intimidated going into that space because of bro culture, because of whatever, could be really, really intimidating for people. So, what we focused on was just making sure we had a welcoming and inviting space. And sort of on the same analogy, and where I thought you were kind of going with this is that, look, I say this all the time: 80% of fitness, 80% of nutrition, 80% of marketing, I would imagine, are really the same for everybody, especially when I do copywriting, which is what I do a lot of as part of what I do as a digital strategist with Scaled. 80% of that is the same. It's really that last 20% that's deeply personalized. And that's where you dive into that particular client to make their gym experience better, their marketing experience better, whatever the case is. But I often remind people that the base, the foundation is the same across the board, with rare, at least in my case, rare exception have I found it to not be the case. So, everybody needs kind of the same starting point. It's what you do after the basics that I think truly makes their experience, the customer experience, highly personalized, successful, something they're going to stick with for the long term. So I think we could talk about pretty much any industry, and we could probably put that idea on top of it at some point.
Yes. Okay, so I like that. I wasn't going there, but I think you're right. I think, and the thing is, I mean, I'm making this up now, but I like to do that. If businesses did the 80% that is the same for all businesses, if they just did that bit, if they did 40% of the 80%, which is good for the same for all businesses, I think they'd be much more successful. Because I don't think people are getting into the depths. They're not, I I worked with 1,000 different businesses in 9 years, to a varying degree, and we didn't ever get funky or particularly creative, or because people don't really want that. And also,
Yeah.
whatever you do, you have to bring them kicking and screaming. Do you know what I mean? No one's going willingly,
Yeah.
because their
And
ego gets in
nobody
the
wants
way.
to spend that budget. Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody thinks, in marketing, that's always like, nobody wants to spend that budget. Brand awareness is a tough sell, although we have mountains of data to prove that it works. But, every single time you start with a new client, you start over, it seems fresh, with like, where does
Yes.
that fit into the budget? Do you see value in it? That's the tough side of at least from marketing, from my experiences, getting the buy-in that this in fact works. Building a personal brand works. Being on LinkedIn works. We have data. We have proof of that. But it's
But
still
we
a
are
tough sell
in
for
the
people.
shallows. Do you know what I mean? We're in the shallows. This isn't exciting, interesting, experimental stuff. this is
Yeah,
this is like the given. Like, put out an image of yourself that communicates the value that you deliver and gives people a good impression, and put a hook in
yeah,
there for them to talk to you. Do you know what I mean? These are the basics. This isn't beyond the 80% that's tailored for your specific needs. But the other end of this analogy that I'm kind of interested in now is this idea of charlatan gyms and charlatan marketing companies, because
mm,
you won't be aware, you might not be aware, and I'm not sure if this is still true, but it has been reported that the average lifespan of a digital marketing customer in London for a digital marketing agency is 3 months.
mm,
So literally, I mean, that is like the gym membership, isn't it? It's like literally
sure.
get in, get whatever you can,
Get your
but
money. Yeah,
expect for it not to continue. So there's that. And then somebody told me about a statistic in the restaurant business, like the average time scale, the average lifespan of a restaurant business is 6 months. So what's happened in that industry is the whole industry must have cottoned on to the fact that this customer is going to be around for 6 months and then they're going to be gone. So of course
mm.
the whole industry then must be working just to make as much as they can out of that particular customer in that
Yeah. I mean,
time.
I've always known that I've never owned a restaurant or anything like that, but I've always heard that the margins are razor thin. So,
Razor
you
thin.
know, if you're coming into a restaurant and you know you want to think, I have friends that own a restaurant, a sushi restaurant, and you want to think it's all going to be about the sushi. We have the most amazing sushi. Nobody does sushi, like, okay, whatever. But they fall down on the marketing side and their business
Yes.
folds. And in this particular case, the people that I'm thinking of, the friends, the it's a husband and wife. The wife is phenomenal at social media and marketing. Phenomenal. She blows me away. And she has been a huge part of it. Now, her husband's the one that has the sushi experience in the background and stuff like that. And together, because they put so much effort into both the
Yes.
experience for the customer plus the actual good food, they've actually been very successful. They've moved from food truck only to a brick and mortar location, and now they're opening a second brick and mortar location. And I look at them as
Fantastic.
really like a good model for that kind of thing. But and it goes back to the marketing. They didn't just make a great product because honestly, who cares? Lots of people have great products.
Yeah.
How are you going to interact with your audience and make them raving fans? And they've made raving fans through their marketing techniques. And I think that's really commendable. It's really, really cool to see because it's like, it's the proof of when you do it and you put the work in, what you can get out the other side, you know?
Yeah. It's shocking, isn't it? Who knew? Like having a good
Who
product,
knew?
giving your customers a good experience, investing in some marketing. Who
Who
knew
knew?
that's how you get to be successful? Who knew?
Exactly.
Um, because this is the other thing. I mean, I say it a lot. I might as well tell you. Like, I would go into businesses and blow their minds with the opportunity and the data. Do you know what I mean? This is what
Mhm.
your market looks like. You know, and that would be the first meeting, and then they'd engage us, and then we'd go back. And now they are the world's leading expert on marketing, and they don't want to do this thing, and they don't want to do that thing, and they want to present it like this, and they want their nephew to do the website, and do you know what I mean? And it's
Mhm.
like it's the ego gets in the way, and I would
Mhm.
imagine if you're like a master chef, there's a real danger of that too, where because you're
Mhm.
the master gastronome, then you know everything, I suppose. But it's certainly interesting, but it's not what we're here to talk about today. So as you know, there are only 5 questions if we are
Yep.
to bring some order to this. So the first question is, how are you qualified to talk to us about your specialist subject? We will nail down what your specialist subject is in a second. The second question is, who do you work with? How do you add value to their lives? The third question is, what is your recommendation for people who want to get better at your specialist subject? The fourth
Mhm.
question is, what should people read? The fifth question is, who can you throw under the bus who might enjoy or maybe just endure to have a conversation like this with me? So, your
Sure.
specialist subject, I have to tell you, you've got me interested. I might go so far as to say triggered because you claim in your LinkedIn headline that the words you use are um, providing LinkedIn strategy using AI tools for faster lead generation. That, my friend, is a loaded little value proposition.
It's a good
So
thing.
what?
It's good. Hopefully it's getting
It's
people's attention.
yeah, yeah. So it's good. I mean, it's good. It's strong. It's challenging for me. So I'm hoping what you're going to say is that is your specialist subject is using LinkedIn strategies using AI for faster lead generation.
Mhm.
Um, can we say that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. That is definitely what I'm spending a lot of my time currently doing with clients. In fact,
Fantastic.
I'm in the middle of a 6-part series with a client right now, and our next training will be all on AI tools. Now,
Okay,
all our
good.
previous stuff has been about um, building the right type of LinkedIn profile page that's highly optimized for converting.
Okay.
Lots of training
Wait,
in
wait, wait,
sales
wait, wait. We
navigator.
need to bring some
Go
orders
for
to
it.
this before you
Yeah,
before
yeah.
you run
Go ahead.
away. So the first question then is, how are you qualified to talk to us about LinkedIn strategies using AI tools for faster lead generation?
Yeah, I can break that down. So, with the current company that I work with, Scale Consulting, I've been running the LinkedIn strategies arm of the company for like the last, well, next month will be 2 years. Prior to that, the company I was at beforehand did not come in the door specifically working on LinkedIn, but sort of fell backwards into it. Had a lot of background from running my own businesses on creating videos, getting out in front of people, and so I started doing that for that company, and then we realized that we could um, get a lot more attention if we started focusing on putting out more personalized content, not being so much about the company page on LinkedIn, but really being about the people who work for the company. That led to an opportunity at the current company I'm at. And so that's exactly what they were already doing. Our CEO, Jake Dunlap, had been doing that exact process since about 2018, and really had made a focus at that time, a switch, to really putting out more personalized content. And by growing his LinkedIn audience, he was able to draw in a lot of business. And to this day, we still bring in millions of dollars of business directly as a result of his LinkedIn profile. So in the last 2 years on the LinkedIn side, I've been working tirelessly with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, typically in sales, but not always. I also work with executives and high level CXO types, who are looking to make a splash on LinkedIn. They want to build their personal brand. Perhaps they've had a light bulb idea that they need to not focus so much on the company page and move over to the personal. So that's all like 4 years now of just 100% LinkedIn work. Obviously, the company I work for is a sales consulting company, or not obvious, but it is. And so the people that I typically work with are on the sales side. We're working with sales teams and BDRs and SDRs and AEs and things like that in order to help them grow their personal brand. And that's great for them and it's great for the company. So it's a win-win, which is rare, but it is. It can be great for them in their future career, whether they stay with that company or not. We all know that, BDRs, SDRs, they move around. You're not probably going to be with one particular or one company in sales for a long time. Usually there's some movement in there, but it's also great for the company at that time. And then the last part of that headline is the AI stuff. And that has definitely been the most recent. But to your point, AI, these things are really just about data and how we're manipulating it, using it, um, and how that's speeding up over time. And so as these things started coming about really in late 2022, as we saw the emergence of things like ChatGPT, I got really, really excited. I thought, okay, I see something here. Does everybody else see it? Turns out, yep, lots of other people thought it was pretty amazing too. And then I just dove in head first. And so I just had a post out the other day, and I consume probably way too many newsletters at this point, and I'm part of AI communities, and I sort of live and breathe it, not only with the current job, but actually outside of my, the constraints of the working hours, because it is very much the next phase on how we're going to do our jobs. And I'm excited about it. I'm not scared about it. I think, yeah, there's perhaps jobs that will be wiped out because of it, but we've seen that throughout history. But what I really think is that it's going to make people really, really efficient at doing what they do best. And I love this idea of helping people, sales people who I work with, CEOs right now, using AI tools to kind of break through the fluff, the things that they are repetitive that they have to do all the time, putting that aside and getting that done efficiently so they can spend their brain power being whatever amazing thing they are. There's so many of us that have to do so many things in our life that are repetitive, building sequences, things like that don't necessarily, we can do them in a more efficient way is the way I'm trying to say it. And then that frees up time and space for people to like really put their amazing human minds towards something, things that AI can't do. And so I really love this idea of bridging the two and saying, let me show you how to be really optimized as a human, as a person who could put out amazing content, and let me help you break through those barriers. But also, let's not ignore some of these AI tools that are coming out who are going to help you do it faster, more efficiently. So that kind of breaks up that takes in all three ends of it, hopefully, for that headline.
Good. Okay. So, the thing that occurs to me, this is brand new. You're saying late 2022. ChatGPT landed in the first week of December, and Midjourney was maybe a month ahead of that. So we're talking like late 2022. It's now April 23.
Less than 6 months.
So we're talking about 5 months. I've got a view. We've spoken about it quite a lot. We speak about it on the news. We did a thinking out loud about it. I'm not scared of it. I don't think I'm at risk from it necessarily, because what I do for money is stand up and teach. And until they've got an AI that can do that, then I'm going to be okay. It's hugely useful to me when I'm putting together course outlines or researching courses. I find it really useful as a course tool. But I am worried I am worried. I don't really want to have a philosophical conversation because I'd rather just rinse your brain of, how we could be using it more effectively. That's what I
Sure.
really want to do. But I am worried, just so you know where I'm coming from. So if I get a bit challenging, just know that's where I'm coming from. And also, I like to be challenging. So the question, so the question now that I ask all LinkedIn type people is, why are there so many of you? Because I think you're going to be like the 102nd, 103rd episode. And I think 10 people have been LinkedIn consultants. So why are there now so many LinkedIn consultants?
Low barrier of entry. I mean, just like CrossFit gyms, when I opened up the CrossFit gym, let's say I wanted to open up a CrossFit gym, or I wanted to open up a Gold's gym. To open up a Gold's gym here in the US could be, I don't know, 20, 30, $40,000, who knows, with fees and licensing and all these kind of things. And then all the equipment, I could easily be in the hole $100,000 to get the door open. CrossFit gym, I was able to open up a CrossFit gym and be in the black within 6 months. And I put about $8,000 and built it myself, right? Low barrier of
Yes.
entry. So I think the same thing I see. I agree with you, by the way. And that's why I'm careful with the LinkedIn specialist titles and things like that. Strategist, I think, is a little bit more accurate. Because where is the certification? Where is the master's degree? My wife's a dietitian. There's parameters that say that she's an expert, right? There's the master's degree in the US and things that she had to accomplish, and they're sort of blockchained, right? I mean, we can go and look and say, yep, you definitely went through these courses and now you've worked as a dietitian, and yes, you're a dietitian. Well, at least in the States, you cannot call yourself a dietitian unless you have those certifications. Well, we don't really have that standardization when it comes to LinkedIn strategy. So for every person, and we see this in marketing all the time, for every person that has a little bit of success on their own, says, oh, I can make quick money if I just turn around and now tell other people, because they're going to want to work with me like a personal trainer because I'm fit. So if I'm fit, I must know how to make you fit. And of course, that couldn't be less true. We see tons of fit people who are giving horrible advice in both nutrition and health and fitness. And we see the same thing on LinkedIn. Well, just because you're able to have success, and by the way, most of the time, this, we don't know how they got their success, by what means, or is it just smoke and mirrors? Are they
Yes.
just showing us the vanity metrics they want to make it appear like they've somehow 6x this or that, in their ROI or whatever. So I just think it's low barrier, and it's really, really unclear. It's murky as to what makes you or doesn't make you a specialist. And it's very, very easy to cheat the system, unfortunately. And you were talking about it earlier. Unfortunately, there's a lot of charlatans. There's a lot of people who are claiming they can do stuff that they cannot. And they're easy to spot if you're on the inside. But it's social media. So we see this on all the networks. Back when 2015 with Facebook, one person would have success with Facebook ads, and then they would be turning around and telling other people how to be successful. So that's my answer. I agree with you. And the answer is low barrier of entry.
Yeah. Okay, good. And we saw this. I mean, I started my business 2005. And then when the recession hit and everyone got made redundant, then all of a sudden everyone was a social media marketing specialist. And, they knew where the buttons were, but they didn't necessarily know anything about marketing, is what was interesting. I think a few things about this LinkedIn thing. I think firstly, at the top level, it seems to me that there are far more marketers engaged in B2B marketing than there are in B2C marketing. It feels to me like if you go into a consumer business, those people seem to have the nous. And if I think about the people who engage me, nobody in consumer engaged me in like 9 years. So there's that, I think. I think there is a proliferation towards, or an attraction towards, B2B, like agencies serving B2B. And then I think the other thing is, what I tell people about LinkedIn is it's the largest, the most dynamic, the most up-to-date, the most accessible database of business-to-business decision makers that has ever and will ever exist. LinkedIn is ridiculous and preposterous. It really is. And I go back to the beginning of my career where I was on the phone fighting with the receptionist trying to work out who did what in these businesses.
Yeah.
And now you can do that in seconds on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
it doesn't surprise me because I think there is so much more demand for business to business marketing, or maybe business to businesses struggle more with their marketing. And then it is just such a phenomenal thing. It is ridiculous how good LinkedIn is. And I'll always talk to a LinkedIn consultant, specialist, strategist, because, you are clearly doing it. And just to be really clear, I've been really impressed by everyone who's come on and spoken about LinkedIn. I haven't found no charlatans. That was my mission when I started this podcast, is I wanted to find charlatans. I haven't found any yet. It's really annoying.
I like to think, I mean, folks like John Espirian, who you've had on, or Niraj Kapoor, who you've had on, these are buddies of mine. I've known them for a long time now. And they, in some areas, probably directly compete with some of the things that I do. But I really find it to be, or not all of them, but I really find it to be a welcoming area. I have no problem sending people to other quote unquote LinkedIn specialists if I think they can help them better. And I really like
Yes.
that about it, that it's not cutthroat, or at least with the people I deal with, it's not cutthroat. And I have my specialties of where we focus with through Scale Consulting. And that tends to be more with really diving deep into the sales navigator stuff. And not everybody does that. That's not
Yeah.
everybody's part of LinkedIn. So I think there's something for everybody out there. And again, it comes down to, sure, I mean, there's companies have multiple choices, and it's like, how do you fit with their personality? The people I work with, obviously, like my particular personality, or like the way I handle or do things. And of course, John might do them different, or Niraj might do them different, or Ariel, or whoever. So yeah, I agree with you. And at the same time, I think, isn't it great that there are enough people out there willing to help and help people level up on LinkedIn, because God knows there's lots more people who need the help. So,
Yes.
hopefully we can reach them.
I'm sure. Well, if you're using LinkedIn, you probably will. And I'm sure, like, it has become specialist, hasn't it? Then, because Gillian Whitney was here. I don't know if you know Gillian. She's part of John's network, and then she
Mm-hmm.
introduced me to Michelle J. Raymond. So
Yep.
Gillian
I know
does
Michelle.
video for LinkedIn, and then Michelle does company pages. So
Mm-hmm.
there is lots. There is actually a lot to it, and I suppose there is the opportunity then to niche into those kinds of areas.
For
Good.
sure. And I mean, AI is a good example of that. I don't know a whole lot of other people right now. I mean, of course, it's a large network, so I'm sure there's people I'm missing, but I don't see a lot of people sort of niching in the way I am with the AI tools. But I started putting it in, I started talking to clients about it, and it's what they asked me for. I mean, I was doing the
Yes.
training yesterday, and they're like, "Is this the one we're talking about, the AI?" I'm like, "That's on Wednesday." So it's coming up. They're leaning in. They want to know more about it, and it's I'm letting our customers sort of help me figure out the best way to help them. So that's even a better part, is I enjoy it, but I can see the light bulbs. I can see the ideas. I can see people getting excited about it. And so that's what really kind of, gets me excited, is that they're excited.
Excellent. Good. Good. Okay. Good. Are you ready for a challenging question?
Sure.
Good. The challenging question is, when I hear, not AI, but when I hear LinkedIn and automation,
Hmm.
assisted marketing, let's say that's the common definition, I just think of spam. And
It is
when I
spam.
think of these things, I really think, do marketers really need more opportunity to be lazy and spammy? That's what I think. Because marketing must be one of the easiest jobs on the planet, like in terms of physical exertion. And then every time these tools come along, it's always marketers who are using them. So we know about LinkedIn automation. We know that people don't particularly like it. People don't use it well. It becomes really obvious that they're doing automated things. I've done
Exactly.
it. I think there's some justification in it. The question is, yeah, that's the question. Do marketers need more opportunity to be lazy?
More opportunity to be lazy. I would say this: for every new tool that comes out, it will be bastardized. It will be used for nefarious reasons. It will be used to automate the crap out of something. And I have found over and over and over again, I know you've been in the industry a long time yourself, that it simply doesn't work. That being true, having a persona, being real, not trying to be something you're not, is always what's going to rise to the top. And it's those people who do the best. As far as what you're asking, I'll go back to what I said earlier, which is this. I think there's plenty of things like tasks during a standard day or week or month that if we can automate those parts to it, it makes it easier to free up our minds to bring the real customization and personalization into it. So while absolutely I fully expect LinkedIn pages, personal LinkedIn pages, both company and personal, to be fully automated. Somebody will set that up. They'll use the AI tools, the chat GPTs or whatever. And they're going to say, look, I have 1,000 old posts. I train the data set. The model can't really do that as well right now, but it's coming. We know it is. It can essentially write like me. I can hook that up to something like, a Gain or HubSpot or something like Hootsuite, and I can auto send that stuff out. I can then take those videos, I can break it up into transcripts. I can take those transcripts, I can use something like 11 Labs and recreate my digital voice. And frankly, I don't ever have to be on camera again. And I don't have to like literally utter a new word. And I can produce 3 posts a day consistently 365. Absolutely. I mean, if it's not already possible, there's a couple of hoops that you would have to jump through. But let's just go forward 6 months. This shit's going to be easy. It's going to be easy. And so will there be people who do that? Yes. Will some of them be successful? Yes. However, I don't think ultimately that will be the way forward. It'll be new, it'll be interesting. People will be like, look at this shiny new object and things like that. But at the end of the day, people connect to people. It's human to human. That's what LinkedIn does best. And the people who go all the way to AI are going to miss out because there's still going to be people making human interactions and connections. And so that's where I see it. It's not the lazy part, although people will do that. Everybody always wants to know, how can I get more out of it and do less? That's human nature. But I think it's the people who put together this idea of, okay, what can I get off my plate so I can really put my head towards the things that are like rolling around up here. And that's where I find the really, really good, new, innovative type stuff. And that's what I get excited about when I see people putting out that kind of content. Does that answer your question as far as like kind of where I'm coming from?
It answers the question in terms of where you're coming from, and I believe you. The thing is, I don't think, like today, I posted my 100th episode of this talk marketing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
congrats, by the way.
I'm sorry?
I said congrats, by the way.
Thank you very much. I'm really quite happy about it. The thing I'm most happy about it is how easy it was. Like just having great conversations with really cool people. It's just so easy. Except today, I thought what I should do is, what's the word on LinkedIn? What do you do when you tag somebody? I should tag everybody. Mention, that's what they call it. So I did that. But there's 100 people. There's not 100 people. There's like 99 people. One person did it twice. Took long, man, because it was like literally one person at a time. And I put all the playlists up and I did it. And I was like, okay, I've done the first, because we've broken them down into like series 1, 2, 3, 4. I've done the first one, took 15 minutes. The second one took 12 minutes. So I got it done in about 40 minutes, but it was long.
Sure.
But the benefit was it caused me to think about, I had that conversation with this person and that person, and because 100 people aren't front of mind, do you know what I mean? So a little bit like, I'm sure you would approve of somebody like David Goggins, there's benefit in doing the hard yards. Do you know what I mean? There is always benefit in doing the hard yards. And my fear and my experience is that people will go to ChatGPT and they'll be like, job done. Do you know what I mean? It won't be a starting point for them. It will be the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and my fear is, like, my big fear for something like ChatGPT is that basically, I mean, this is a big fear. This is a big thing, I think, without getting too melodramatic. But basically, it could draw a line under human creation. Bear with me. Like, why would anyone sit down and write a piece of copy for the web when they could go to ChatGPT and get it done in 30 seconds?
Hmm.
So now what happens is there's another tsunami of content being produced all day, every day, but it's not original thought. It is literally regurgitated from the web somewhere.
Sure.
So that's my big fear. And I'm really worried for artists with midlife. You know, I'm really worried for them. But
Mm.
don't want to have a philosophical debate about whether it's good or not. I want to know, and so we could probably frame this with question number 2. Okay, so there's one more question I want to ask before I
Sure.
accept that you're qualified to talk to us about this. Is this, is AI just not the next shiny new thing that has been
Mm.
sent to distract marketers? Because at the beginning of the noughties, I was there screaming about how amazing the internet was and everyone needed a website. And at the end of
Hmm.
the noughties, I was there telling everyone how amazing social media was and how everyone had to get busy with social media. And I was talking about mobile apps, and do you know what I mean? I peddled this
Mm.
rubbish for them completely free of charge for like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. But now I'm not doing that anymore. So I am just wondering, like, one time a plasterer stood up at an event and said, I don't need a website. I've never had a website. And because I've never had a website, I'm probably not going to need to. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Mm.
is this the latest shiny thing that's been sent to distract marketers? I'm wondering.
I don't think so. I don't think
Okay.
so. I think in conversations I'm having with people, yes, it's shiny and new, and it is the wild, wild west right now. So we're having this conversation today. And in 2 months, some of the things that we'll talk about or I'll mention as tools or otherwise will be irrelevant, because some of the bigger players will have absorbed them and they'll just be, oh, it's this button you hit on Excel, right? It's not a thing anymore. It's just like it's this Chrome extension. It's this Excel thing. It's this Microsoft thing. You just do that now. It's just a feature inside this other tool. So a lot of that is happening. We're just seeing it like fold in on itself almost, and lots of new companies that are standing up are going to be out of business in 3 or 4 months. They're going to raise a couple $1 million and they're going to crash and burn. And we saw this, obviously, anybody that's old enough to have gone through the dot-com explosion and stuff like that. We watched this happen, and the Amazons of the world made it, right, as a bookstore, and then they became Amazon. And we have all
Yeah.
these success stories that we all like to talk about, but how many hundreds, how many thousands of businesses never made it, never got off the ground, after lots of hype and lots of this is the next best thing, and Forbes and Times and all these other things, and they're nothing. And those people maybe went on to pivot like Elon Musk did from PayPal and pivoted to this and that and the other. um, I do not believe this is just the next shining object, because this has been going for a really long time. We're talking about ChatGPT in the last 6 months, but these evolutions and what's been going on with algorithms and Moore's law and how things have doubling every 2 years with it, all that kind of idea. I think we're just at that hockey stick point on the graph, and things are just moving very, very quickly. Yes, it's in the news more, but there's also a lot more money being invested into this area. And so I think we're just starting to pick the corner of that hockey stick graph. And there's just going to be an explosion of new abilities and tools, because the technology is meeting demand. And we're getting to a point, just like with the iPhone, where it's usable by everybody. It's got a nice, shiny user interface to it. People want to use it, and it's solving real world problems for them. And now that we're at that point with some of these AI tools like ChatGPT, it's easy to use and it solves real world problems, at least one probably for most people. And so I think it's a sea change. It's huge what we're going to see, and this is nothing. I mean, it's truly nothing. I can, if you want to hear, I can give you my opinions of where I think this is going, in general. But it's this. These are the early days. These are the early days. It's the wild, wild west.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, it's definitely a hockey stick. I don't know what the next graph up from a hockey stick. It's a step.
Mm,
Somebody sent me a link to OpenAI back in June or July last year. I'm
mhm.
not joking. It was junk. It was absolute junk. I'll tell you how bad it was. I don't know how it worked. I think I spent $18. I'm interested. You know what I mean? So I spent $18,
Mm.
and I think I managed to spend 3 cents of those $18 before I was completely bored
Yeah,
and just gave up on it. But then December, it's astounding what it is
right.
and the way. And I don't think you have to scratch very hard to see through it a little bit. Like what I tend to do now is I'll put in a prompt and then I'll say include sources, and it will give
Mm,
you the actual sources of where it's doing is pulling content.
sure.
But I think that the genius of it is that it has that typewriter animation on it. Do you know what I mean? Because if it
Mm.
just went bang, then everyone would be like, oh well, that's the internet.
It's
But
not
because it's
thinking.
like it
Yeah,
looks like it's creating it, I think that's the
yeah,
genius of it. Okay, good.
yep,
Let's get over my issues and let's move to question number 2. Are you ready for some good news?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think you are adequately qualified to talk to us, as
Good.
adequately qualified as anyone is 5 months in, to talk
It
to
was
us
going to be an
about how we're
awkward.
going to.
It was going to be an awkward podcast if it
No,
went
it
the
was
other
going to
way.
end. I was just going to say goodbye if you hadn't been qualified.
Nobody would have seen this, right? Nobody seen the light of day.
No one would have ever seen it or heard of you ever again. So the second question then is, who are you working with and how are you adding value to their lives?
Hmm.
And we need to frame this, I think, more as who are you working with and how are you using AI to deliver value in their lives? This faster lead generation, um, which AI tools are you leveraging to do that and how? That's what I'm interested to
Sure.
know.
So I mentioned it before, but I work with a lot of sales teams of varying size. I also work with executives. So a little different on maybe how we're approaching both sides of that. They work best when they work in tandem. So we do have companies, I have clients where I not only handle the executives and their LinkedIn strategy, but then we'll also work with their sales teams, which is great when we're able to do both, when there's a budget to do both. Um, but let's just take the sales team side of things. So I will get on and I'll do trainings, and I mentioned it before, but I focus a lot on how they can be more efficient using Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator gets confused a lot of times. People think it's just necessarily, maybe it's prospecting, or I'm going to look somebody up, or maybe it's to look up a business. But I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, people think they know how to use Sales Navigator, but they don't. That's just a fact. I cannot tell you how many times I get on training where people say, "Yeah, I use Sales Navigator." Then they go through the training with me, and they're like, "Oh, I wasn't. I wasn't really using Sales Navigator." And I'm like, "No, it's fair. I think a lot of people are that way. They don't really know how to utilize that tool." So what I've been doing more recently is not only showing them how to be super efficient using a Sales Navigator. When I mean efficient, what I'm talking about is how to accurately go and build great prospecting lists, how to add lead lists and account lists, and how to interact and engage with those people on those lists. It shows up on the home screen of Sales Navigator. It quite literally brings the post to you. Once you've done the work, the due diligence of really working and not just slapping some stuff on there and calling it a day, but really going through the process and putting in the work to create these lead lists. It actually gets really easy to engage. But what we also know is one of the scariest things for pretty much anybody when it comes to engagement on social media is the blinking blank spacebar. And I'll tell you a quick side story in this because I think about it all the time. With my past job, I was working in the business intelligence industry, and I worked a lot with data. One of the big companies that we would partner with was called ThoughtSpot, or is called ThoughtSpot. They're still around. And Sudhesh Nair is the CEO still. And I was doing an interview with him one time out at a conference. And he said to me, he goes, we wanted to create the language model essentially for data sets. You ingest your data. Sounds a lot like what we're doing right now. This is a couple of years ago. You ingest all your data from your company, billions upon billions of rows of data, and you will be able to ask natural questions to the data. Can you compare Q3 to Q4 sales, blah, blah, blah. You would type that in and it would present the graph in less than 5 seconds. Then you could drill down on that graph into any particular place you wanted to. So if you wanted to look at January, you could drill into January, on and on and on you could go. And it was very easy to use. But what they found was the blank search bar was the biggest hurdle for people. And so at the time, what they started to do was pivot to create something that was more like a YouTube home screen, where it started to show you what your coworkers were creating. What kind of graphs were they looking? What were ones that were getting upvoted? See, they created a system where people did not have to start from scratch. They had something to start from. And what I recognized right away was I was talking to all these people with sales. And then when they weren't creating content, I'd say, what is holding you back? They would just simply go, I don't know what to write about. And I'd say, but you've told me in conversations, all this amazing stuff in your head, all these amazing conversations you've had with clients. What about all those stories? What about all those objections you overcame? All the pain points that you know how to work around, your years of experience in this industry. What about all that? And they would go, yeah, but I don't know. Does anybody really want to hear that? And I'd say, yes, we all want to hear that. In fact, that's exactly what we want to hear about. If you can entertain, if you can educate, if you can inspire in your posts, yes, we all want to hear that. We're waiting on you. I often say I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I often say if she was the right age to be on LinkedIn, which I think is probably like 16 or something like that, I would have her posting on there. And I fully believe that as a 12-year-old, even today, she could post content of value to other people because her unique experiences are her own. And we want to see and hear about those. That's what, to your point, that's how we don't just become an echo chamber and everybody's posting the same stuff over and over again. So how do we use these AI tools? Well, we use tools like ChatGPT or Chrome plugins like Merlin, which will be probably not needed in a couple months here because it'll be baked into other bigger products. But right now I still use a Chrome extension called Merlin. It's great. And what I'm able to quickly do is, let's say I'm in Sales Navigator and I've built my list and now I have the people in front of me on my home page and I just simply want to interact with them and they write a post. And I'm like, okay, so now I can copy that post, their content. I can put it into Merlin on the same screen. I don't have to leave or go to ChatGPT somewhere else. And I simply say, summarize this or help me come up with a follow-up question. Because I always recommend people on LinkedIn, whenever possible, ask a follow-up question. The chances of getting engagement are much higher because you're now trying to interact with the person who wrote the post. And this has been a game changer because now we're able to go from what ThoughtSpot ran into, which was that blinking blank search bar of anxiety. And we're replacing that with, here are a few suggestions to get you started. And that's all it takes. It's the finger pushing the boulder that starts rolling downhill. And now we're starting to see people's brains light up and they're going, oh, I could talk about that. Oh, I could do this. Oh, I could make a quick video about that. And I'm like, you always could, but you just didn't have the tools to help you get started. And so this has been the big game changer in sales when I'm training people, is helping them use these AI tools to kickstart their brain, and then they're off to the races. Will some of them abuse it and just copy and paste and copy and paste? Of course they will. They're going to just say, why would I have to be involved at all? But that is certainly not what I'm training them to do. I'm training them to start with AI, infuse human, and come out with something that's more personalized, more, innovative, and just overall better copy and conversation at the end of that result versus one or the
other. Okay. That's not what I was expecting you to say. Okay, but you did, so that's okay. I mean, this is where I see the value in it, is it's like, I mean, the way I see it is it will take you from 0 to, I think, about 40% of the way. Do you know what I mean? And it will take you right there.
If not more.
I mean, I've done exercises where people are writing books and I'm like, okay, you need to know what the leading books are. You need to know who the leading thinkers are. You need to know what the best quotes are in this area. You need to know, all these things. And so you can ask ChatGPT 8 or 9 or 10 questions and you've got the foundations for some pretty useful research on how to write a book. The danger is that people will go, give me 60,000 words on this thing broken into 8
Right.
chapters.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, I mean, it doesn't work apart from anything else, but I mean, it just
I
doesn't
mean, it'll
produce
create
anything.
content, but look, here's what we know, right? We know Google has straight out come out and said, we're not against AI content on the internet. We're against bad content, right? So
Yeah.
the SEO will not suffer per se. I think, again, if people are using AI to produce even better content than perhaps they would have been able to produce on their own and more efficiently, then Google's not against that. Why would they be? They're deep in the AI game themselves. They're not gonna handicap themselves. Um, I think back to my dad, and I'll give you the example here. 36 more than that, probably closer to 40 years in aviation. Started as a mechanic at an airline called TWA that some people might remember back in New York. Moved his way to, it was a company called Western Airlines. 1 year later, after our family moved to California, Western Airlines was bought by Delta Airlines, and my whole family picked up from California after a year living there, coming way of New York and Long Island, and we landed in Atlanta, Georgia, because that's where the job was. That's where the job was. And at the time, I think my dad probably took a pay cut and a demotion because they were, one company was being absorbed. And of course, the Western people were going to be, left out a little bit. And so my dad took a step back. From a technology standpoint, Delta was way behind. There were stories that I remember as a kid where they were taking stuff from computers and putting them back on card stock because Delta just wasn't ahead. Cut to, this is like 87. Cut to 2005, my dad retires. He's a VP of Delta Airlines, one of the VPs of Delta Airlines. I think at the time when he left, he was number 16 in the company. My dad did not have the tools of AI and things at the time, but had he, I do not believe my dad would have been leaning on them to create content for him. He had 40 years of experience on how the intricacies of aviation mechanics repair worked, how to operate and run an entire organization of billions of dollars of budget and so on and so forth. ChatGPT, though, would have made my dad a more efficient, better writer, and it would have helped him communicate his unique ideas more efficiently so it reached the masses. And that's where I feel like had he had that tool, he could still do it, I suppose. But, at 74, he probably doesn't have as much of an interest in it as maybe he would have in his 40s like me. But I do look at that and I go, yeah, it's his experience plus these tools that would have made the content great. Not to just give me 60,000 words. I truly feel like people will do that. There'll be a bump. There'll be a rush of people saying, pay me to show you how to do exactly this. And then people are going to realize that doesn't work. They're going to lose a lot of money. People are going to be upset. They're going to be mad at AI. But ultimately, that's all going to settle down. And we're all going to be using these tools no differently than we use grammar check today. Nobody thinks about grammar check as cheating. Yet, when you go into Google or Gmail and it tries to guess the end of your sentence, we don't go, oh, that's ChatGPT, that's AI, even though that's existed well over a year. It's been helping us autocomplete, and check our grammar and our spelling in our emails. But nobody was calling that out at the time. They were just saying, oh, that's a cool little feature. Like, all this stuff is just going to be so ubiquitous, so normal. I think everybody will be using these tools, and it'll just elevate and up level everybody. That's at least my hope for it. My excitement around it is that we're going to upskill people, not make everybody the same and homogenous.
Yeah. Okay. And I get you, but I don't share your optimism. People are way too lazy, man. People are like rats. They will just find the easiest way. That's the thing.
Sure.
But
But
now
that
what
leaves
I'm
more,
thinking,
I'll just say that leaves more opportunity for those who aren't lazy. That's the way I look at it.
yeah, and I get that as well. And I don't get any sense whatsoever that you might be lazy. So that's good. You're on the right
No.
team. The thing I'm thinking now is that, like, this goes to this shiny thing, where we've got ourselves into a situation where Google are basically dictating the rules of the game. So the rules of the game for Google are, you have to be producing content. You have to be producing written content. So that's that situation with Google and all of these other, because they're all playing these algorithms,
Mm.
But we've lived through a golden age of copywriting in like the last 15 years. Copywriters have never been so busy in their lives. And now there's another tool which will now do that work. The danger is, I think, the danger is what? The danger is it's just going to end up being computers talking to computers. And the real
Yeah.
danger is, and this is where we've got to, where people are taking their metrics as being, rightly or wrongly, like the number of views or the number of likes or the number of comments or the whatever. But all of that for me is a little bit of this distraction from the fact that what we're supposed to be doing is generating leads for our salespeople who are
Right.
supposed to be putting money in the bank. Do you know what I mean? And it just seems to me that, just this, like it all just seems like a big distraction. And people are distracted enough already. So I just wonder, like, does the world need any more content at this stage? I mean, it does. Like, the
We
world
need new
does.
ideas. We need
People
new.
do need new ideas, but
Right.
the computer will do it for us. Isn't a new idea; it's an old idea. And
I don't think the computer can do it for us.
was
Not
that?
yet. We're not at a, general intelligence at this point. So, the computer can only spit back out what it thinks its next guess is on how to do things. And we're
Yes,
seeing
yes, yes,
sparks
yes.
of AGI and things like that. But, there's no replacement still for human experience, storytelling, these kind of things. And so, um, I think there is a true danger. I agree with you. On the idea of, well, if you're using ChatGPT to create new content and that new content goes out on websites and ChatGPT then starts sourcing that content for new content, aren't we in trouble here? Like, what happens if AI starts sourcing AI for whatever new stuff, and then of course nothing new has happened? It's just a huge echo chamber. That is a concern. I agree. I fully agree with that. I just think it's going to allow us more opportunities to really stand out, and so there's going to be even more opportunities for people to really break away from the herd, and be seen as true subject matter experts, visionaries, leaders in their space. And that's where I really work with people, quite frankly. When I work with executives and stuff, that's exactly what we're doing with them, is figuring out what their content bucket's going to be, to help them stand out and really, really lean into their subject matter expertise so that they can drive new leads. So people are encouraged to go to their LinkedIn profile and send a DM or send a connection request, which is how we're getting our clients to get net new leads.
Yes. Sorry, I've just asked ChatGPT to write me a story, and it has because I hadn't thought about the storytelling thing. Here's the thing: so this is literally the thing: is we shouldn't all be producing content. Why are we all producing content? Like, I think it was better when the world was divided into, I don't know, all different types of people. And some of those people were authors, and some of those people were script writers, and some of those people were newscasters, but they were invested in that all the time. So I do think a friend of mine who I can't name describes social media as the 21st century publishing swindle. I had all these people producing content, and they weren't paying any of those people any money. So I just feel it's like that. But I don't want to fall too down deeply into my issues. I'm hearing you. I think, like, I am a content producer. Do you know what I mean? I do it all the time. I'm not working. I'm not anything more than a hobbyist, but I am making the effort to reach out to people, not computers, and have conversations. Do you know what I mean? And share those conversations. The world needs leadership. The world needs people. But what we're being offered is computers. That's the issue. Let's not get into my issues. I will resolve them eventually. Good. I think we got to question number 3. Question number 3 is a super short question. Like, if you can give this to me in less than a minute, I will find some artificial intelligence to edit it and distribute it onto short media platforms. The question is, what is your recommendation for people who are either looking to invest in leveraging AI to support their lead generation, or want to get better at using AI to support their lead generation, What is your advice to, what is your recommendation to those people?
Well, for if I was consulting a business right now, I would say probably at this point hold off and making any large investments into any one particular AI tool. I think it's so volatile right now. There's so many things we don't know. I think the next 6 months are going to be really, really interesting, and I think um, there's a lot of risk in investing in some new tech stack that you're hoping is going to fix your problem, your leaky funnel, your whatever, not getting enough leads in, converting them. Um, but as we often see in sales, just like we did in data when I worked in business intelligence, um, what people think their problem is and what their real problem is are often drastically different. When I worked in data, you have descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. Those are your four different levels of data. And oftentimes people would want to know the predictive, the machine learning, because it was sexy. It was the shiny new object. We want machine learning. How do we put machine learning on top of our data? And what you would find is they had dirty data. Their data sets weren't even close to a place where they could truly get good answers out of it. And this happened all the time. And so in sales, I see this oftentimes too, where of course, if you come in as the next CMO, if you come in the next CRO, it's easy to say, I've got this new tool and I'm going to put it and we're going to implement it. And there's some great ones out there. I mean, this is going to fix the problem. And oftentimes I think it's the same fault, which is your foundation is broken, but you want to build this high rise on top of it. So why don't we hold off on the high rise and let's go address the foundation? And oftentimes the foundation are your people on boots on the ground. That's your sales department, the people who are out there actively talking and interacting with other people. So my recommendation from that side is hold on, and if you're going to spend time in education and becoming educated about what's happening. If you're an individual and you're saying, Brian, I'm leaning in here, I like what you're saying, it's interesting to me too, where do I go next? What's your recommendation? It's going to be simple. Get onto ChatGPT, start playing around, start looking into what different prompts will do for you. Go into a tool like Anthropic's Claude, which I think is amazing. And I think they're going to be doing a lot of stuff on the enterprise side. And use a tool like that, ask questions, have conversations. In fact, Claude, I will say, is much easier to have a back and forth conversation. And I will give you the difference with that one too. I was saying this in an AI group I was in. I said, the difference with Claude for me was my wife could kind of, like I said, she's a
Claude.
dietitian. She could kind of less about this. What is it? I'm sorry?
What's it called? Anthropic's Claude or Claude?
Claude. Claude. Well, it's CLAUDE.
It's Claude. Okay.
Yeah, and it's by Anthropic. Anthropic was started by people who broke off from OpenAI, and they're doing things a little bit differently. I won't get into the weeds on how they're training their model, but anyway, it's more conversational. And I will say, I was excited with that because my wife went on there and I started asking diet nutrition questions to it. She's a dietitian. She's very, very smart, and she's like, I'm kind of like hooked with this because I'm having a conversation with the chatbot. It was very different than the way ChatGPT would do things. So I think you got to get in there and you have to play. You have to give yourself permission to play and to not necessarily come with anything that's usable on the other side. You have to give yourself permission for it to be pretty awful to start with, to not get the results you want, but also to say, you know what, this failure, this learning is part of the process, and it's how I'll ultimately get better or I'll understand this more. So I think you really have to get into some of these early tools. If you don't know where to start, if you're like, well, maybe I want to look into, you know, video tools, which are sort of like not exactly, we're not where we are with video generation that we are with text generation. Midjourney, obviously, we're closer with image, but we're only several months away from full videos being created from a text input. Right now, I would say it's very, very rudimentary. They're basically slapping a bunch of, it'd be like bulk commanding Midjourney or Stable Diffusion to give me 30 images, and then I put them in sequence and I create an animation. 24 frame per second animation. That's kind of what we're doing right now. That's what you're seeing out there. And it's kind of chunky and bulky. Some people have done some cool things, but we're not quite there with video. But if you are in a business where you see the value of using video in the future, I highly recommend starting to look at some of the tools that are there today. Because like this guy from Matt Wolf says, he runs a company called website called futuretools.io. I highly recommend going to that website because he does a lot of reviews of a lot of AI tools. It'll save you a lot of time. And he says the same thing all the time. Look, when you watch my YouTube videos, you guys say, oh, but it's so awful. It's not a good result. I would never use that video. Animation people are safe. Video production people are safe. And he has the same answer for everybody. But just remember, this is the worst it'll ever be. This is the worst it'll ever be. So getting in there and understanding where the worst it'll ever be is today will help you make better decisions of where you need to focus your energy going into the future. And so that would be my recommendation for anybody is there's really no fast way to do this. Use places like futuretools.io to help you focus your energy so you don't have to look at everything. But you got to get in there and play. You got to dig in. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to figure out what excites you or makes you, what moves the needle for you. And if you're a business, don't move too fast. Don't get sucked in by the hype and drop $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on a new tech stack or an AI tech stack that somebody is selling you that could be obsolete in 4 months. And you've signed a 1-year contract or you've invested a lot into training and things like that. That would be catastrophic for some businesses. So I do worry about businesses moving a little too fast in this space when we don't quite know what's happening next. We just have a lot of people guessing, at this point.
So cool your jets is your recommendation. I think that was a little bit more than a minute.
Oh yeah, you did say a minute, didn't you? One thing you know about me, Martin, is I'm not a lack of words. You'll have to use good. AI to pull out the tidbits of that.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. But the good news about that is that you did answer, I think, part of the next question is what should people read or what content should they be consuming? So futuretools.io.
Yep, futuretools.io. Obviously, the ones most people know about, like ChatGPT, I think that's the most famous one. But, Google has Bard. It's not particularly great right now. I mentioned Anthropic's Claude. I highly recommend going to check that out. But I will tell you, an area that I've gotten a lot of value out of is actually called the AI Exchange. I learned about them on TikTok. And so there was a girl named Rachel, and she was putting out content with her sister. I found it very, very helpful. They said, hey, we're going to start this Slack community. It costs you a few bucks. I said, great. I've been in the Slack community for a while. They are putting out playbooks now on their website and AIexchange.com. It's phenomenal. So I'll keep this one really short. If you're just trying to dip your toe in the water, you're like, I don't really know where to go next, go to the AI Exchange. And if you're willing to put a couple bucks into it per year, join their Slack community. I'm not paid promotion or anything like that. I have no affiliate links or anything. I really, really believe in it. And it's been super valuable to me. So yeah, join me there because I think you'll get a lot of value out of it.
Excellent. Fantastic. Good.
That one was short.
Now I just need to check in with you and see how you are feeling about your experience of having appeared on the Talk Marketing Show.
No, it's been fun. I love the thought-provoking conversations, and that it's diving a little bit deeper into some of these surface level topics and getting under the root of it of like, but where is this going? Having a disagreement or agreements in some areas of it, I think is really, really helpful. We need more of this. We need more people talking about this, thinking about it, thinking about the problems, think about data and privacy, thinking about what happens if AI starts just regurgitating AI and what does that look like? What does that loop look like? Thinking about people just, abusing it. So yeah, I think these conversations are really, really needed. I appreciate you having me on here for sure.
Fantastic. Excellent. There is motive behind the question, of course.
Of course.
Because the motive is, if you've enjoyed your experience of being here, then you shouldn't have any trouble in throwing a couple of people under the bus who might also enjoy to come and have a conversation like this. So they need to be people you can introduce me to in the way that John introduced us. I forgot to say in the introduction that he introduced us. And what he said is that you're a whiz when it comes to AI and LinkedIn and things. So who do you have in mind? Who do you think might endure at least and maybe even enjoy To be fair, no one said they haven't enjoyed their experience of the Talk Marketing Show yet. Who have you got in
I
mind?
think the person I would love for you to talk to is actually a coworker of mine, Brianna, and Brianna Dunbar de Mike, and it's hyphenated, and hopefully I'm not messing that up. But Brianna works with Scale Consulting, um, is in my mind like a marketing, oh, I don't know, genius. I mean, she's amazing when it comes to marketing. She has a long history of it. She hosts a couple of podcasts herself, and just she has a strong understanding of AI. She's been using it to, again, I think the right way, help her quickly summarize and jot down data points on her notes for her podcast, so she can quickly turn around and send out emails to people. And so she's using tools right now to help her optimize her workflows outside of what she's doing with Scaled. Wealth of information, wealth of knowledge, great guest. So I have no doubt that you guys would have a great conversation, and your listeners will get a ton of value out of the conversation for sure.
Excellent. And you can set up an introduction in between us, so like a LinkedIn introduction.
Yeah. I can introduce you to Brianna.
Okay, cool. So I'm running at about a 50% success rate. So for us to be assured of actually successfully getting someone on the show, I need you to throw someone else under the bus. Who else do you think might enjoy to have?
Trying to think who I know that would be great as far as marketing. Well, I will tell you another person who would be an amazing guest. Do you know Nick Capozzi?
No.
Nick Capozzi. Two P's in the last name. Nick is phenomenal when it comes to video marketing. If you want to know how to be engaging, I will leave his story to him if you have him on. But Nick his background was selling high-end watches on cruise ships. And when I tell you that nobody is more engaging on video or getting your attention, he knows all the ways to do it. He's phenomenal. He's a good buddy of mine. We've known each other for a while back, since being on like Clubhouse, which by the way is how I think I met John as well, back when we were all doing Clubhouse in early 2021. 2021, I guess it was. So Nick Capozzi would be another person that I'd be happy to make an introduction for. And again, from marketing and video specifically, I think he's doing it better than a lot of people. So he would be a great discussion as well. And he's super engaging. So he's not a boring guest by any means.
Fantastic. Right. We've got to make that happen. You've got me excited about that one now.
Yeah. Nick's awesome.
Okay. Super cool. Excellent. So you ready for some really good news then?
Sure.
We got to the end, man.
That's it. Went fast.
That's it. It does go fast, doesn't it? And we've only overrun, I think, by a minute or two. People say it goes fast. It does go fast. You know what? Having conversations is the best thing. Like, having these conversations might be the best thing, other than being in the surf taking photos, that I do in my life. It is so much fun. It's so much fun. It's incredible. Yeah. Good. So all we have to do now is say goodbye for the benefit of anyone who's still watching and listening. And then what I'll do is I'll stop recording and we can say goodbye like normal human beings. But I would like to say, I think you've done something to quell my skepticism.
Okay. Maybe.
I think
maybe
I'm looking at it. I'm intrigued. I've got time on my hands. You know, I am looking at it. I am judging it. We are in for a fascinating, I think, like you say, 6 months. I mean, if you look at, but there hasn't really been a step change again since the beginning of December. Well, why would there have been? It's only been 5 months. But I think you're right. In the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to see some more astounding developments. And we can't know what those are at this stage. But
well, can I give you my 30?
Like that.
Can I give you my 30-second prediction on that? I'll keep it short.
If it's 30 seconds, not one of your 30 seconds though, like real world 30 seconds.
No, real world 30 seconds. I think the prediction here is, like, everybody's talking about like prompt engineering and prompting on ChatGPT. What I really think this is going to is natural language. If you imagine walking into your desk and saying, okay, what are my things on my calendar for today? And how does that interact with that? And you know what? I have to be over here, there. And it's basically the future I see it as is that virtual digital assistant that's AI based. And I think that's really where we're going. So right now, yeah, it's DOS prompts and typing things in and having to be a little hacky with it. And it's not particularly pretty, but we saw this already. We know what comes next. And that's highly polished, very easy to use, intuitive. Don't have to type things in anymore. I just simply come in and I start talking very much like I'm talking to you, and things get done. So there you go. I don't know if that was 30 seconds, but that's where I see the future. And I think it's coming fast.
It wasn't 30 seconds. And the thing is, I think it's right. What's it called? Is it called the Wiggy Wig? I think that's the next obvious step change that needs to come. It needs to be completely accessible to people who aren't computer geeks. And this prompt engineering stuff, I just think, no, I don't see that being the thing. Do you know what I mean? Being good at writing prompts, because you can cut and paste the prompt anyway.
You won't need it in the future.
Yeah. And the last guy I spoke to about this said that, if you can't code, it's going to be like not being able to read or write in the future. I don't see it going that way either. I'm with you. I see it becoming actually much, much, much more accessible. So your granny can do it if she can remember her passwords. Yep. Good.
Yeah. No code.
Man, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You've got me thinking again, I think, and or maybe I was thinking too cynically or too negatively. You've got me thinking again about I need to find more ways for this to make my life easier. So that's what you've achieved today.
That's it. That's the goal.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here, man.
I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for taking the time to check out this episode of the Talk Marketing Show. If you found this interesting and useful, then YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this one. And this is the latest thing that we've posted. If you haven't yet, and you could take a second to like, share, subscribe, and comment, then that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic journey.